Good morning. It's Sunday morning, February 27th, 2022, and today we are going to do binding two different ways. Pamphlet binding and Midori binding.
I have a darning needle, an awl, some dental floss, a ruler, and that thicker booklet of pages. Now, if you want to, you can put a cover on this. You can use just a printed piece of copy paper with whatever design you want on it. For this one, I'm not going to put a cover on it. That's personal choice. I may glue something down on top of it later, but this is just pamphlet stitching. Whenever you stack a bunch of pages together in pamphlet form to fold them, the pages themselves, no matter how well you get them even and folded as tightly as possible, what happens is they're stacked up on each other right here, and that pushes the inside pages this way. So in order to make this relatively even on this side, I took a ruler and just shaved off. You can actually see the shaving still. I shaved off this side to make these relatively even. And they're not perfect, and I don't care. It's not meant to be a work of perfection. This is, like I said, typing paper or copy paper. So it is 8.5 inches tall. Half of 8.5 is 4 1/4, and we're going to make 3 holes. The one that's really kind of important is the middle one. So here's 4 1/4. I take my awl and I punch it through. Do not get your fingers right where your awl is coming through, because you'll poke them and it will hurt. So there's that. There's our center hole. And then I really don't need a ruler for this, but I'm going to do it for demonstration purposes. I come down 1 inch from the top, which in this case would be 7 1/2, and I poke a hole all the way through. And then I come up from the bottom 1 inch, which would be 1 inch, poke a hole, make sure it goes all the way through. Okay, so that's all we need the ruler for right now. The next thing we're going to do, and use anything you have. I happen to have bookbinding clips. I have little bookbinding clips. So I am going to clip my book, and I like to do it, don't ask me why, but I like to do it with one clip up and one clip in. And I always put the wings down just for a little bit of extra stability. I don't know why it makes sense to do it this way to me, but it does. So that's the way I do it. Okay. Now our pages aren't going to drift around, and they're as lined up as they're going to be. Thread our needle and make sure our tail that has the knot is a little bit longer. So you go down through the center, and out through the back. You can hold your tail with the knot if you want to. I don't usually. Then we're going to go from the back up through the top hole, which didn't poke through as well. Sometimes if you take your awl and go through the inside and then back through the outside, it works a little bit better, because these pages have shifted, believe it or not, just in fooling around with them. All right, so up through the top, and I want to leave myself a little bit more of a tail, all the way down to the bottom. And yes, I just poked myself. Okay, and back up through the center. And the important part about this is you want your tail on one side, and where you come up, back up through the center, you want your needle to be on the opposite side. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So first let me get this in the center hole. I hope this is on camera because we're a little cramped here. Alright, it went through, but it didn't go through all the pages. There we go. Alright, whoops. And we're out again. Up through the center hole. Our tail is on the left side, so we want our needle coming up on the right side of our center stitch. Pull it tight. Not, you know, not excessively tight, so you're pulling or tearing your paper. Tie a knot, just an overhand knot to start with. Get your tail out of the way and turn it over and make sure there's no gaps here. And there aren't, so now I'm going to tie a surgeon's knot, which is an overhand knot, but you go through twice. Pull it tight. You can tie one more overhand knot if you're nervous about your knot tying ability. Seems like about a half the binders tie 3 knots, half to tie 2. But that's not going anywhere. Give it a nice tight tug. I like my tails pretty short. Some people leave these tails long and they put dangles on them and stuff like that. Not me. So there we go. And then, just, even though this isn't necessary, I like to put a dot of glue. That's a very big dot of glue. I like to put a dot of glue, not half the glue bottle, right on the knot. And I'll just sop that up. You can actually just tack your tails down like that if you want to, which I am going to. That's a pamphlet stitch. It's very easy. I will put up just a little diagram to help you remember. You can print out the diagram. It'll look like it's on a half sheet, but I will print it only on one side, so you can cut it down or you can put it in as a folio sheet. It's up to you. Okay, so now we've done our pamphlet stitch. We don't need our clips anymore because our pages are where they're going to be, period.
Now let's move on to Midori style binding, and for this you can set aside your pamphlet. We will need our cover.
If you remember last week at the end of the show, I had a tools and materials list for the next show, which is this one. 1mm elastic cord. I use black. You can use whatever color you like. I just happen to use black. We have our 1mm elastic cord strung into a darning needle. If you have difficulty, try and get the biggest eye you can. If you have difficulty getting the elastic into the needle eye, flame the end. Don't put the end into the flame, just put it near it and then pinch it.
Getting this needle threaded and then having to unthread it and take apart the first go at this binding method frustrated the heck out of me. So, word to the wise, make sure the needle eye is very large and do the flame trick. Don't burn your fingers too badly and be very patient. All right, let's see how I did.
Is this going to be a problem? I did it on the previous cover, and I noticed that the cover was not reading well. That blue paper, that blue printed paper was very thin, and the green was coming through, and it just wasn't reading well on the camera. So I made a new cover, and here we go. We're going to start by going down through the bottom, and your holes need to be pretty big for this. I'm going to go down through the bottom, and I have reinforced this spine because 4 holes in an inch wide spine was not big enough. That's the other reason that I made a new book. Up through the top hole. It's always down through the bottom, up through the top. That's the only way I can remember to do it. Now, our goal is to have 4 lengths of elastic on the outside and 4 on the inside. The outside elastic is not used normally, but the inside elastic is your binding. So in order to accomplish that, we're going to go down through this same hole again. That gives us 1 on the outside and 1 on the inside. Oh, am I out of frame? I'm sorry. So down through the same hole where your knot is. There we go. Up through the top hole. I'm going to turn this so that it stays in camera frame. So this is our top in my left hand, and this is our bottom in my right hand. Pull your cord through. You don't have to pull it tight because it's elastic. And the tension will regulate itself just by use. Up, down through this second hole. My fingers are a little sore because I've done this multiple times. And after today it will be done. Up through the top hole where my left hand is. And we're caught on the tripod, which has happened numerous times with a 5-yard length. Down through the bottom hole. You can add eyelets to these holes to strengthen them. You want to make sure that you have a fair bit of cardboard in between the holes to act as a bridge. So, up through the last hole, and I'm kind of wishing that I had used eyelets just for a cleaner finish, but again, this is our master reference journal is a practice book. We're practicing techniques and building skills. Down through the bottom. And now you see why, before we tie, well, no, let's tie it off first. So down through the bottom. Now we have 4 on the outside and 4 on the inside. You could, if you don't care that there's a knot on the outside, you could tie it off and be done with it. But I prefer not to do that. So I'm going to go back through this second to last hole, which is this one right here, our third hole on the inside. And I'm going to tie my knot here. So all I do is go under that and tie a knot. And you can do a double surgeon's knot like this. We're going to add a bit of glue to it, and it should hold very well. Pull it. This you do want to pull it as tight as possible so it grabs on itself. Now, for a little silicone glue, which will dry super fast. You do get strings from this glue, so just pull them off like you would hot glue. Some people call silicone glue the equivalent of hot glue, but in cold format. So I'm going to leave a little bit of tail here because I'll cut it off later. Don't pull your darning needle out of this piece of elastic because you'll not like yourself very much trying to rethread it again. So, glue on this one. I'm going to snug this up just a little bit so it lays next to the cardboard. And I'm not going to worry about tension because just by using it, it's going to even itself out tension-wise. So, got it. Am I in frame? I hope I'm in frame. Let me go around the tripod for this one. Still not in frame. Too much stuff on the desk. Those of you with sharp eyes will notice that the desk is changing constantly. And the reason for that is, most of the time I don't have enough room to do something that is deep this way. Alright, this one's fine, so we're just going to add our glue right here. Leave your binding open while it dries. It takes minutes. Alright, so there we go. Midori style binding. What do we do with all the stuff we have made? Well, we've got our pockets that we made, and we have our signatures that we made. Keeping in mind, this one with 3 different sizes of paper, or 4 or 5, depending on if you put in any sheets behind the white sheet that you're writing on. Our pamphlet binding. And the way this fits into the book is super simple. Just open it up, and I'm going to start from the back. Usually you start from the back, filling a Midori style. And I am going to slide it right in there. Now, if you haven't started your cover yet, you are at somewhat of an advantage, because there's one critical measurement I did not give you that those who have started their binding might be mad at me about, might have even discovered. Your book cover has to be tall enough to accommodate not only your pages, but accommodate these holes. So just for example purposes, this is 8.5 by 11 paper, and so this is 8.5 high, and you'll have to make a cover that is taller than 8.5, because 8.5 is a standard paper size in the States. You would do the same thing for A1 overseas. So you want enough up here, enough cardboard or enough cover to accommodate these holes, and these holes have to be just a fraction taller, maybe an eighth or a quarter of an inch taller than your signature. So that gives you, quarter inch here and quarter inch here. So this is the part of the journal that we made for notes and projects and drawings and that kind of thing. The next thing is we left this set of pages unbound, and it's going to be totally up to you. If you like stamps and you don't like stencils, maybe you may need fewer test pages than more. This was 4 groups. If you like stamps and stencils and you want samples of how they work together with the inks, you might want to make more than 4 groups. This is 4 groups. You might want to make 5 or 6. And you'll have to, if you're adding craft paper behind your writing paper or Bristol board, you're going to have to kind of be mindful of how thick this signature gets. But since we did not bind it yet, we can always add pages. Maybe you just don't know. Maybe you're like, well, stamping sounds okay, but stenciling I'm not sure of. Or I'm never going to use Bristol board, so that doesn't apply. Whatever is going to apply is going to dictate how thick this section is. And this is our test section. So for the time being, I'm going to put that in my second part of my Midori binding, and you can see this will fit relatively easy. If you have too few pages, say you only made 2 groups of these, the elastic might crimp the top or bottom. So that's why you want just a little bit of extra play. Why is this not all going? Oh, I see, because it's getting caught underneath. I got it. Now, this top sheet, because it's so narrow, is going to slide around a lot. And in that instance, you could run a bead of glue down the outside. So right here, you could actually glue this to this and have it be a little more stable. Totally up to you. I probably am going to do that because that's probably going to drive me crazy. But now what we have is a test section where we test our different paints, markers. You can do this by color, all the greens on one, all the blues on another. Any way you want to use this section, it's a reference section. So then I have left one of the cords. I don't know whether I will put something in between this section and this section. This section is going to be for the, this section is going to be for things like, I don't remember how to do that origami fold. So I'll put a little pocket here or something to put this pocket in. Right there. And then maybe I'll write the instructions or make a diagram or what have you. That's what this section is for. Now we have the beginning of our master reference journal. And I hope it's making more sense why we're doing this. Like I said, we're just practicing. All of that will be in subsequent episodes. Skill building. Next week we're going to talk about how to use your printer, scrap paper, and other things to make master boards, master sheets, and your own digital prints. And in this case, this was a collage I did. My printer is acting up. You can see some black ink smears here and here. And, you know, it tells me that my printer is not long for this world.
We'll cover that and much more next week. Screenshot that list for next week. And until I see you again, God bless you. See you real soon.